Is this you?
No problem. Piece of cake. What?
If so, there's no need to fear. Uncle Ben is here to show you guys a super easy to use scale shape that's going to help you navigate those tricky jazz chords in no time. Well, hey there kids, it's your good buddy, Uncle Ben. You know guys, a while back I heard a jokey joke that said the one way you can get a guitar player to stop playing is by putting sheet music in front of them. But in reality, there's another way for most of them. From my experience, if you take your average rock and roll guitar player and put him face to face with a minor 7 flat 5, or as they're sometimes called half diminished chords, they will freeze in fear and piss their pants. But I found a way a couple of years ago to play against these chords really comfortably without going, too far down the theory rabbit hole, using a simple modification of a scale shape that I've been using for years. And that's what we're here to talk about today. As always, free charts and tabs for this lesson are available over on my Instagram page at Ben Eller Guitars. Just search for hashtag Weekend Wankshop 266. Find them and start playing along. Downloadable tabs and charts, backing tracks, bonus lessons, and so much more are available to everybody who supports my channel over on my Patreon page at patreon.com/BenEllerGuitars. This week for my Patreon supporters, I'm going to be uploading a very special bonus lesson to go along with this one, showing you guys how I like to use some of my favorite minor pentatonic sequence licks in conjunction with this scale shape for maximum impact. And you can gain access to that lesson and a ton of other bonus content if you support my channel even at the $1 a month level. So be sure to click the link in the video description and check out that Patreon page today. Thanks! Today I'm very excited to be playing my new PRS SE hollow body standard, which is just so lovely, isn't it? Now let's just go ahead and get one thing out of the way first. The typical, theory guy answer thing for whenever you're encountered with a minor 7 flat 5 chord, or again half diminished chord, would be to play the Locrian scale over it. Now that B Locrian scale I just played right there is one of the modes of, you could say, either the C major scale or the A minor scale. You could say it's just like the C major scale starting from the 7th note. You could say it's just like the A minor scale starting from the 2nd note, or you could say, damn, that's confusing. I don't want to be thinking about how I'm playing from the 7th note of some other major scale from some unrelated thing. It doesn't have to be that complicated. Now later in the video I want to talk a little bit about minor 7 flat 5 or half diminished chords and show you guys some shapes for those and how they're used and all that jazz. But first things first, let me just show you guys this really easy to see shape that I use to solo against them. Now that right there is your B minor blues scale, which is a scale that almost all of us know. And this is one that I'm going to use to modify a little bit to make this cool shape that I used to play against those half diminished chords. Okay, the construction of that scale is root, minor 3rd, 4th, flat 5th, regular 5th, flat 7th, and then root again. The next octave of the scale pattern is just those same intervals. Root, minor 3rd, 4th, flat 5th, 5th, minor 7, root. Now if we take that scale pattern right there and we just simply eliminate all of the fifths from it, okay, so all the 5 intervals that are in there, if we cut those out, we can use this scale shape to play against minor 7 flat 5 chords. Because when we do that, it has everything that you need to make a minor 7 flat 5 chord. Root, flat 3rd, flat 5th, flat 7th, root. So let's do that real quick here. Let's take this blues scale and cut the fifths out, okay? So we're gonna play root, minor 3rd, 4th, flat 5th. We're gonna skip that guy. We're not gonna play the regular 5. We're gonna skip ahead here to the flat 7, root, minor 3rd, 4th, flat 5th. There's the regular 5. We're gonna skip it, minor 7, root, flat 3rd. That is a perfect sound to use against minor 7 flat 5 chords. But it is kind of unwieldy to play, so let's rearrange the notes a little bit. See, my problem with that fingering that we just came up with by cutting out the fifths out of the blues scale is what happens right there in the B string. You have this really awkward move where you have 3 notes on the G, a single note on the B, and then 2 notes on the high E. That's gonna involve a nasty little finger or ring finger roll, and I ain't about to deal with that. So what I did is slightly rearrange the notes of this scale a little bit so that way it fits into a nice 2 note per string pattern that feels like a regular minor pentatonic scale. Check this out. Okay, so here on the low E, we're gonna have root and flat third. Next string, you're gonna have 4th, flat 5th. Next string is gonna be flat 7 and root. Now when we get here to the G, we're gonna play minor 3rd and 4th. And then check this out. Instead of playing that flat 5 right there, like you do with the blues scale, let's put it right here instead. Okay, now this kind of breaks out of that nice first finger wall that you have when you play the blues scale, where nothing ever dips below the first finger's position. So we are gonna step outside of that by 1 fret and put that flat 5th note on the B string. Just 1 fret outside of your position. Again, it's the same thing as doing this. It's just a little bit more convenient for the picking and fretting hands. Then you gotta play that flat 7 interval up here on the B string, then on your high E, root, and flat 3rd, just like before. So just to give this more context here, if I was playing against G minor 7 flat 5 in a progression, I would move that scale shape down here to start on G, and I'd play fret-wise 3-6, 3-4, 3-5, 3-5, 2-6, 3-6. Again, by rearranging the notes of the scale so that that flat 5 appears just outside of our scale box, we do have a little shift that we have to make whenever we use it, but it fits everything so nicely into a 2 note per string picking configuration that it really makes it pretty easy to use and easy to see too. It's a really cool scale that you can use in that jazzy context, like what we're talking about right here, soloing over minor 7 flat 5 chords. But it's also a really cool thing you can add into your metal soloing too, you know? I find there's something about the way that this takes the 5th out and really makes the flat 5th sound less like a passing tone that you use on the way to the 5th. It's kind of like it really legitimizes that note as a part of the scale. You get some really cool, kind of exotic and sinister sounds out of it. A lot of times I call this scale the Demonic Pentatonic because it is still 5 notes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like a pentatonic scale, but the lack of that 5th in there really emphasizes that flat 5 and makes it sound mean. Now for you theory guys out there, I want to take a second here and talk about what a minor 7 flat 5 or half diminished chord is anyway, because I'm sure a lot of you guys are wondering that question right now. In the past here on my channel, I've put up a few lessons about how you can take the notes of a scale and stack them up in order to form more and more advanced chords. I'll be sure to put the names and numbers of those episodes on the screen right about now. Look at them. Check them out. All of them. But here's the basics. Let's take a C scale. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Okay, that's just your garden variety C major scale. I'm going to write that out in another octave so we can easily harmonize it and see how the notes stack up. So going from this C, I'm going to write out another D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Now the process of building chords out of this is essentially like a game of leapfrog, like I've talked about in the other videos. In order to make the chord that's attached to the first note, you would leapfrog over this, have an E note, leapfrog over this, have a G note. You'd end up with the note C, E, G, which forms a C major chord, the first chord in that scale. Boy, I wonder what a train has to say about this right now. Now, if you keep that game of leapfrog going, you get increasingly more complex chords. So, if you took your game of leapfrog you had there from C and went C to E to G, that forms C major. Then if you kept that game going and you went from G to B, so C, E, G, B, that forms a more complex chord, a C major 7 in that case. Now check this out. If we go from the 7th note of the scale, the B note in this case, and we leapfrog over to D, then we leapfrog over to F, right? The intervals between those notes, B to D is a minor 3rd, B to F is a flat 5th. So you end up with a chord whose structure is root, minor 3rd, flat 5th. That's the recipe for a regular old diminished chord. And those demolished chords can be a little bit hard to swallow sometimes. That right there is a sound that's just a little tricky to sneak into a pop song. So sometimes in order to soften the blow of that diminished sound, what we do is we play leapfrog again, add on this A note. That gives us a chord whose structure is root, flat 3rd, flat 5th, flat 7th. Now we have two different names that are commonly used for that chord. It's either a half diminished chord or a minor 7 flat 5 chord. One of the reasons I like to think of these as minor 7 flat 5 is because it gives me ideas about how I can form those shapes, right? So like let's say for example the chord I was supposed to play was B minor 7 flat 5. Now a B minor 7 chord is one that I know by heart. From the A string here, I've got 2nd, 4th, 2nd, 3rd. That gives us root, 5th, flat 7, flat 3rd, which is what makes the minor 7 chord. But we're not trying to play a minor 7 chord, we're trying to play minor 7, flat 5. So that tells me I need to take the notes that are in my pre-existing chord shape that I already know by heart here, and simply lower the 5th. 5th's always really easy to find because it's the note a power chord away from the root. So basically I need to take this shape that I have here and just lower the 5th is all. That gives me a chord shape that's like 2, 3, 2, 3. These are really easy to see because it's like a little checkerboard. Another way I like to play those minor 7 flat 5 chords sometimes is like this. I think I used that grip the first time while playing for Nick Johnston, if I'm not mistaken. That's a cool way to play those chords too. And again, you can see the logic in it when you just think of it as a minor 7 chord with a flattened 5, right? So you can play B minor 7 like this. That's just E, D, G, and B strings all on fret number 7. I'm skipping the A and high E strings. It's kind of your Casa del Sol sound for you Final Fantasy VII fans out there. Oh yeah. And intervallically what's happening when I play that shape is root, flat 7, flat 3rd, and 5th. But again, to make this minor 7 flat 5, I need to flatten the 5th out, right? So that leaves me with a grip that's like 7 on the E, 7 on the D, 7 on the G, and 6 on the B, our new flattened 5th interval. Sometimes I play it with my thumb like this too. Maybe you know how to play a B minor 7 chord like this. This is kind of taking your familiar D minor 7 open position shape, like playing Scrubs by TLC, you know, and moving it up into a fretted position like this. So I've got my 9th D string, 11th G, and then 10 on the B and high E strings. Now that right there is a minor 7 chord. If I need it to be minor 7 flat 5, I need to lower the 5th, right? So again, if that's root, that's 5th. 5th is always like the power chord to the root. So I can just take that note, lower it, keep everything else the same, and there's a very easy to play B minor 7 flat 5 or B half diminished grip. Now before somebody can start typing up the question of, well, if that's a half diminished, what's a fully diminished chord? It's kind of like this. So a half diminished chord, like I just said, is root, flat 3rd, flat 5th, flat 7th, right? So it gives us that sound. But a full diminished chord takes it a little bit further. It's going to go root, flat 3rd, flat 5th, and then the hyper confusing double flat 7, okay? So it's kind of like if that's the root, there's the 7, there's the flat 7, there's the double flat 7, right? So it adds in that note into the chord for a truly sinister sound. And now that you know the construction of those chords, you can see why this scale shape we talked about today is so dang effective to play with them. Root, flat 3rd, those are both chord notes so far. 4th, okay, that's not in the chord, but that's a pretty harmless note. Flat 5, there's a chord note. Flat 7, there's a chord note. Now we're back to root again. Again, back to a chord tone right there. So when you play this shape, it's damn near just the arpeggio of the chord. Just with that 11th add in there for a little bit more color and flavor. So again, the really cool thing about adding this new shape into your repertoire here is if you know this shape, plus your minor pentatonic and major pentatonic scales, you can play over basically any chord progression. Because think of it this way, if it's a minor or minor 7 chord of any kind in a progression, you can play minor pentatonic against it, and that's gonna sound good. If it's a major 7 or dominant 7 chord, you can always use the major pentatonic against it. So if I was playing against C major 7 or even C7, I can use C major pentatonic and it's gonna sound just fine. And now kind of the missing piece of the equation, anytime you're playing against a regular diminished, half diminished, again minor 7 flat 5, whatever you want to call it chord, you can now use the demonic pentatonic scale and have something to say against those too. Now isn't that something, and it's not even that hard to learn. It was staring us in the face the whole time whenever we've been playing the blues scale all these years, And like I said, I just kind of stumbled across that a while back, and I was like, oh damn, now I have something I can always play against those dreaded, you know, half diminished chords and stuff that come up in a lot of those jazz tunes. So hopefully you guys will get some mileage out of this and make sweet, beautiful music with it. And again, it sounds really dope to use in metal soloing context too. So just put that thing against your favorite minor key metal riff, and it's probably gonna sound pretty wicked. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel for new lessons coming at you every single week. You guys can follow me on Instagram at Ben Eller Guitars, and if you liked what you saw in this video and want to say thanks, be sure to consider supporting my channel over on the Patreon page at patreon.com/BenEllerGuitars. Well guys, it's been fun as always, but I have got to jet, so I'll be seeing you guys next week. In the meantime, get that guitar and get to work. Less clicking, more picking.